So I'd like to start off by saying that, like my last post about the clown doll, I'm very skeptical when it comes to things people claim are paranormal. I don't just jump to conclusions that a strange event is caused by spirits, but some things I really just can't wrap my head around or explain. I won't say what happened to me and what I experienced was from a spirit, because I don't know 100%. All I do know is that I will never touch a Ouija board again, or be around one, because the experience disturbed me for the better part of a year. Also, I would like to add that this is one of 2 paranormal events I've ever personally experienced that I can say I 100% don't know what happened. Sorry if my story is blunt or boring. I'll just state the facts, though, of what happened and the background. So, I used to think Ouija boards were just a lot of crap. I still kind of do as well, but I really don't know how I feel about them anymore, to be honest. I always saw them as a party game for gullible people, so when my friend Joe told me that he had one, I just kind of laughed it off. I'd only known Joe for about a year or so at this point, meeting through mutual friends. He lived in a small apartment with his girlfriend Lisa and their dog Vincent. At the time, I was only 18, Joe was like 23 and Lisa was 20, and for a period of time I used to go over to their place every weekend after work because Joe bought me alcohol. So one night we're hanging out and Joe starts talking about some weird encounters he had growing up and how he attracted spirits his whole life, or some garbage. I smiled and nodded to be polite while he went off on his paranormal tangents and talking about shadow people following him, and he then goes into his room and pulls out a Ouija board. But not the one that you get at a store made by a toy company or whatever. This was made out of real wood and was even hand-carved. It was actually pretty nice, and he said that he'd gotten it as a birthday gift from his parents years ago because he was obsessed with the paranormal. I didn't inquire as to where or who made it, but it did look handmade. While I sat there laughing and joking about it, Lisa chimes in and says, "Joe, tell him about the other night." Joe proceeds to tell me how him and Lisa allegedly spoke to a demon using it, and the demon claimed that his name was Beelzebub, a demon in hell apparently. But me being a metalhead at the time, he definitely got my attention with that name. So I said, "Let's do it. Let's try to talk to this demon," half-jokingly. Joe asked if I was sure that I wanted to try it, and I agreed, so we went into his room. We turned off all the lights in the apartment, Lisa lit some candles all around the room, and then we sat on the floor. I was nervous, I must admit, but I was having fun watching Lisa and Joe's pageantry. It was spooky, and when I looked over at Joe and he seemed unsettled, I asked what was wrong, and he said that he just wasn't feeling right. He didn't like the doors open, displaying the darker areas of the apartment. Him and I got up and closed every door in the place, every room and every closet door and everything. We sat back on the floor, and Vincent the pup laid on the bed. And we began. Oh, and I forgot to add, and this is very important. Before we started, I told Joe that I was skeptical of someone using their fingers to push the planchette around, so we all agreed to just use the back of our fingernails to touch it. Imagine just slightly bending your finger and placing the surface of your nail on top. That's what we did. That way, even if you did add pressure, your finger just kind of slipped around on the planchette, and it didn't actually move it. We also made a rule too, that if the planchette moves, everyone has to lightly scratch the planchette with their nail to prove that none of us were moving it. What it looks similar to is placing your 2 fingers on a table and acting like they're legs and running in place. I hope that helps you get the picture, but basically, no one was able to move it on their own this way. So, we tried several times to ask if there were spirits with us, and nothing. For about 20 minutes, that is, we got nothing. Then I told Joe that I wanted to ask for someone in particular. I said, "Is John Smith, not the real name, here with us? Can John Smith talk to me?" John Smith was the name of one of my best friend's dad who was killed in a car crash while driving home from a fishing trip. And then it moved. And it was insane, let me tell you. It honestly felt like a great force just came to life in the planchette. like it had a mind of its own. None of that gliding around the board crap that you see in movies. This thing felt like we were holding onto a person's hand who was tugging and kind of pulling at it. It was strong but articulate movement, and it spelled out, hello. I asked him if he was John, and it spelled yes. I asked him to prove it, and it spelled out the name of my best friend. I asked him where he was when he passed away, and he spelled Lake, and I had chills down my spine when that happened. But what I thought was going to be fun turned into something really emotional and kind of frightening too. Joe and Lisa knew nothing about John Smith, and I never mentioned him or brought up anything about the circumstances with him, so they could not have known. I started to grow very unsettled, and I told Joe and Lisa that I didn't want to talk to John anymore, so they told me to push the planchette to goodbye, or whatever it was, and I called it a night after that. But I must admit that after some reflection, I wanted more. So the next night, I was back. Same routine. Joe and Lisa set up the room. Joe closed all the doors and Vincent on the bed. Lisa said that she wanted to talk to her grandma, so we did the process. Same incident for her as me. Memory is kind of fuzzy, but it spelt out, I love you, I think, and also spelt out some sort of inside joke that she used to share with her grandma. Lisa was in tears. As with me, though, I had no info on her grandma, and Joe wasn't that cruel to make her cry as a joke, so I don't think he would have done anything. And honestly, I felt powerful. I think we all did. I felt like I was, kind of finally a believer for the first time. That we had an actual way of talking to the spirits. The possibilities, I thought. But then it happened. After the incident with Lisa's grandma, we all kind of were in shock. Joe was comforting Lisa, and I was speechless. We regained our composure, though, when we got back to it, this time asking the normal, are there any spirits with us? And what usually left the planchette lifeless suddenly kicked into great force, and I mean like scary force. The planchette moved violently around the board. We all kind of laughed nervously, and we asked, who are you? The planchette shot to the moon symbol. If you don't know, too, this allegedly means a dark spirit. We all looked at each other, and then simultaneously moved the planchette to the goodbye. And as soon as we did, Vincent jumped up and ran off the bed. He sat in front of the closet door, which was now open, and he sat and stared as if looking at someone. Then I remembered that we definitely had that door closed before. Joe jumped up and said, fuck this, and ran into the kitchen. Lisa and I followed. Joe about nearly had a panic attack. He rushed to turn on all the lights, and I've never seen Joe panic like that. We were all pretty scared, I'll admit, and we don't know what happened, but we definitely had that door closed for sure. After some talking and calming each other down, I eventually left. I didn't really sleep that night because, I had never really seen anything like that, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. But after that night, I always felt like I was being followed constantly. For almost a year, I slept with the lights on, and that year ended up being one of the worst years of my life. I fell into a depression, and I was paranoid. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was always watching me. I continued to go to Joe and Lisa's place occasionally, but we never touched the board again after that. We ended up having a falling out some months later over unrelated drama, and we never communicated after that too. But like I said, that year was just horrible for me. I started drinking a lot too, and I tried to get over the feeling. But I always just felt like my energy level was sapped, like the air was heavy, and I just really struggled to find any joy in life. And then the experience hit a peak. So I was sleeping one night, and I woke up in a panic, because I couldn't breathe. I felt like someone was literally sitting on my chest. I was gasping for air when suddenly I felt what felt like someone grabbing my feet and trying to pull me off my bed. I instantly went into a struggle trying to kick as hard as I could, then all at once it just kind of stopped. I sat there, horrified. Nobody was in my room. And after that, I lost even more sleep, obviously. It took me a while to get over that one, but I ended up finally getting a hold of my life, and I started going to the gym instead of drinking and wallowing in my pity. I started meditating instead of playing video games, and after that year, it all just kind of went away. It was like I was free from that negative energy again, and I've been fine ever since then as well. And so, that's the story of my Ouija board experience. I know it's long, and I know it's not that intense, but I was trying to paint a picture for all of you guys. I'm still not sure of it all, like I said, whether or not it was in my head or if that night was just some sort of a stress-induced panic attack, but whatever it was, I really don't know how to explain it. I've heard, and people have told me, that demons thrive off of energy or something, and it's what might have happened, but I'm not sure. And maybe it was a demon talking to us all along, who knows? Maybe they were pretending to be our loved ones, if such a thing exists. I'm just glad that the whole experience is in the past. And one thing is for sure, I will never, ever touch a Ouija board again. In 2017, my family moved to an older house. It was in rough shape, but the landlord promised to fix it up. We didn't have a lot of money, and it was in our budget, so we took it out of desperation, really. The house sat on a hill by itself, fenced in with a huge hill and a clubhouse. Each room only had 1 or 2 wall lights, and none from the ceiling. But strange things started happening shortly after we moved in. First, my kids discovered multiple angel figurines in a circle inside the clubhouse. It was odd, but I chalked it up to the previous tenants' kids doing weird things. The basement to the house was weird, and we had to walk around the outside of the house along to the side porch to a small door, and that led to the basement. The basement was, honestly, basically like someone had dug underneath the house and had no floors or lights. Just a person-sized space where you could walk around about 100 feet in front, and that was it. When my teenage daughter and myself went to look inside, there were old funeral flowers and arrangements inside. Shortly after moving in, a real heaviness set in as well. The air was always heavy and filled with dread. And plus, my once happy family just went to depression and not speaking. My marriage started to suffer, and it felt like no matter what, we could not be happy while inside there. We had 4 dogs, a German Shepherd, a Pit Bull, a Chihuahua, and a Terrier mix. All 4 dogs followed me wherever I went and made a circle around my feet. If I went to the kitchen, they were there. Dining room eating, the dogs would lay at my feet. Even if I went to the bathroom too, the dogs would make a circle around me in the toilet. They stood at my side and just refused to move. It wasn't long after that as well that the electrical problem started. We would hear zaps and buzzing coming from the breaker box. Multiple calls to the landlord. She would send someone out to fix it. The fixes just didn't last long. We had to leave one weekend too because the problem was so bad that my husband feared that we were going to die in an electrical fire. Around Christmas time, our oldest son ran into my bedroom scared and crying because he apparently saw a lady in a nightgown staring at him through the living room window. My husband and I checked the entire property, but we found no woman or any evidence of her. And it was a few months before my family moved that I started having the nightmares. I would dream of setting the house on fire and dying within it, just sitting on the bed while the flames burned me. I couldn't sleep at night because of them, and my husband started having the same thoughts, and we both just wanted to die in the house. My father-in-law started having hallucinations. He would scream that the rooms were on fire. He would watch a funeral take place in our front yard when there wasn't one. He would talk to himself and poured bleach into a pot of soup beans that I was cooking. It got so bad, in fact, that I took all the knives and hid them in my purse while myself and my husband and our 4 kids slept in one bedroom, with the door locked, scared of him. We honestly believed that he was going to kill us at one point, and every passing day, things were just getting worse. The ideas of killing ourselves grew stronger, and finally we just couldn't take it anymore. We found a new place to rent, and walking away from that house was honestly like a weight was lifted. Every step got easier to breathe, and I started to smile more. A month after we moved, my cousin sent me a Facebook message. It was a post from one of the old neighbours, because apparently that house was on fire and the picture taken was from the back bedroom. That was my children's room where the breaker box was. No one set the fire and no one was living in it, but I truly believe that that house was evil and just wanted to burn. Since moving, my dogs no longer surround me, my marriage has improved immensely, and my father-in-law no longer has those hallucinations. I've been thinking about this experience a lot lately, and I need to get it off my chest. So, I was headed to my little sister's dance competition downtown all by myself. I was a sophomore or junior in high school when this happened, and I was new to driving. My parents had turned off my data as a form of punishment for God knows what. I wasn't able to use a GPS, I couldn't text or call anyone. I had never been to the building that my sister and the rest of my family were at. It was slightly raining and it was night time. It was already notably a bad night, but it was about to get a lot worse. So I was driving all around downtown in what felt like circles. I was frustrated and had no idea where I was. Then I go down a hill and I suddenly realize where I am. I'm on a one-way road that gets onto a busy highway. You merge immediately into a bridge that takes you to the other side of the river. And now I'm really panicking. I have no choice but to get onto the highway. The road goes under the bridge. It takes this turn to the right, where it kind of loops left onto the highway to merge onto the right. I'm not sure if that makes total sense, but basically you're under the highway and kind of turning. As I'm turning under the bridge, my lights illuminate the curve ahead of me, and that was when I see it. I see this person in a black hood that looks like it goes to his feet, holding a long stick, just standing there motionless on the grass, maybe 15 feet from the road. I remember screaming out of shock that someone was there, but then out of fear and kind of disbelief. I quickly drove past it and I stared at it, but I never saw a face. I emerged onto the highway and drove super safely, slightly convinced that I'd seen the Grim Reaper and was about to die. I kept telling myself that that wasn't what I saw. It was just a person. It was nothing. I imagined it all. But what I saw was immediately ingrained in my memory. Even now I tell myself that maybe it was just a homeless person. But what was he wearing? And the stick? How he just stood there too, I'll never forget. Also, my city doesn't have a ton of homeless people, and that highway area is closer to the river than they usually are. But anyway, I turned around in the neighbouring town, and when I crossed the river, eventually I found where my sister's dance competition was, and I didn't tell anyone what I saw. I've since told my family, but I don't think that they really took it too seriously. I spent the rest of the year with this fear in the back of my mind that I was going to die. It really affected me too. Still, when I think about it, I get really freaked out as well, thinking that maybe I dodged some fate that was meant for me that night. Who knows?